Before I even had a chance to unwind, I had to give a press conference.
Elvis, there have been a lot of rumors about your love life.
What if the most famous man on Earth didn't want to be famous at all? Not in the end. Not when the lights faded and the crowd stopped cheering. Behind the rhinestones and sold-out arenas was someone quietly unraveling. Someone asking questions no one ever expected from a king. He stepped through those doors like anyone else. But no one told Nancy Rooks what she was really walking into. That first morning, the air inside felt heavy, charged. What happened next would unfold over 10 years inside Graceland's hushed walls. A life far beyond dusting trophies. Right away, she sensed something unique, something she never expected. Nancy was sent there just to cover a shift. One maid was out, and she'd take her place. But as she pushed open that famous gate, stamped with a musical note, she didn't just enter an estate. She walked into a legend in motion. Word on the street? Elvis was unloading his playlist, touring the kitchen at midnight, eating things no one else dared cook. That first week, she saw him slip by in slippers, robe unbelted, hair tangled like a man far from the spotlight. One moment, she was minding linens. The next, she was watching the king live a hidden life. Have you ever wondered what a superstar really eats at 2 a.m.? Nobody at Graceland expected Nancy to last, but Vernon Presley saw her steadiness right away. Not dazzled, not curious, just calm, quiet, always present. No sequins, no selfies, just someone who stayed out of the spotlight. So he quietly asked her to stick around. A week became a month, and soon 10 years would go by. 10 years in the heart of America's most recorded home. Nancy never chased fame. She never asked for anything, just healed stains, smoothed sheets, and listened. Officially, a maid. Unofficially, the keeper of its secrets. And Elvis noticed. He began texting for midnight peach cobbler, then whispered hymns in the kitchen. Not the grand gospel recordings his fans fell for, but delicate, half-sung prayers, shared only with Nancy and Grandma Minnie at the kitchen table. You wouldn't believe how hush weighed in that room. In 1967, Elvis was no small act, yet Nancy saw a different man. She tells how he would shuffle in after tennis, robe slipping, asking quietly for peanut butter and banana sandwiches or fried pickles. It wasn't indulgence. It felt like craving comfort. She saw him staring into the fridge as if he'd lost his appetite for life. That was her first quiet realization. Something was unraveling behind the scenes. His laugh sometimes didn't reach his eyes. He seemed too present and far away at the same time. Think about it. What happens when the stage lights switch off? Life at Graceland was a cycle. Nights alive with chords and voices, followed by isolated ruptures. Nancy learned his routines. Juice and omelet at dawn. Bacon crisped to dryness because he demanded it. He skipped lunchtime, sometimes eating only crackers or a porterhouse steak before a midnight show. And he always said, "Thank you," polite, a lesson he passed along to Nancy. Her tones softened as she recounted meeting him as a barefoot teenager on Alabama Street, picking a guitar on Lane Street. She didn't know the name Elvis Presley then. She just saw a boy, not a brand. But 10 years later, she was sharing quiet songs in the music room. On nights when Ginger Alden was out shopping, Elvis would invite Nancy to climb stairs and sit by that organ, softly singing "Precious Lord" or "How Great Thou Art." They'd hum the verses, laugh when the bodyguard interrupted, her laughter even richer than his. Would you believe she shared the same keys and chords with Elvis? Then came August 1977. A morning like any other, but with an undercurrent Nancy couldn't shake. She remembered thinking Elvis was arguing upstairs, perhaps about whether Ginger would fly to California or stay for the evening. Nancy brushed it off as lovers' tension until she heard a sudden crash. A door slammed, hard, like silence falling backward. She held her breath as Ginger called downstairs, panicked, saying, "Something bad has happened up here." Nancy's heart dropped, but she froze. It fell to her to go up those black double doors. She found him where he lay, still, silent. Vernon, Joe Esposito, Aunt Delta. They came rushing. She called doctor. Nicopolis, no answer. Ambulance arrived late. Nancy watched paramedics struggling upstairs, cradling stretchers over door frames until they wrestled Elvis downstairs. He looked as if asleep, but Nancy knew. Those blue spots told a different story. What if the legend didn't unfold the way we think? She remembered the time, too. Not 2 p.m. as official records say, but around 9:30 a.m. A discrepancy that stayed with her. She heard rumors that Elvis believed he wouldn't live past 42, his age at the time. She even learned later he'd planned a memorial for himself. Could he have been preparing for something permanent? Nancy spoke of how pills and needles were swept away before police arrived, how Aunt Delta locked the upstairs, keeping the only key. These details weren't in tabloids. They were kept in back closets until Nancy finally spoke. Even after his death, she stayed on, serving Granny Minnie, cleaning rooms, turning lights off. She kept a guard on the gates for another 6 years, until Graceland opened to the public in 1982. She moved across the street, stocked registers at Heartbreak Cafe and Rockabilly's, a quiet shift from cleaning rooms to handling cash. But even then, ghosts lingered. Lights flickered in the trophy room. Once, something drifted from the ceiling onto Grandma Minnie's bed. Nancy joked. It must have been Gladys, letting them know she was close. Wouldn't you rather believe it was a message than a memory slipping? Nancy's time at Graceland was chronicled in her books, The Maid, The Man, and The Fans, Presley Family Cookbook, Inside Graceland. She shared secrets few imagined. Elvis didn't want the public wandering through his home. He planned to open the trophy room himself, then retire. She told of his sense of fairness, firing a white yardman only after his black employee returned from surgery. She watched Elvis relish a backyard fence as fans attempted to vault it, chasing a glimpse of him under the sun. And yes, he chased them back. He'd rather wrestle a man than pretend to please a mob. He remembered that bathroom the way most people recall a hiding spot from childhood: secret, off-limits, untouchable. It wasn't just a bathroom anymore. It was where he erased himself. As Nancy tells it, over the years that door upstairs became sacred. No one knocked, no one dared. She only approached it during an emergency, or what she sensed felt like one. The moment it closed behind Elvis, the mansion's hum pressed flat. You could have heard a pin drop. It started small, just a few minutes in that bathroom. But soon, hours slipped away behind those padded panels. Staff tiptoed past, pretending it was normal. But Nancy watched, and what she noticed was chilling. Every time he emerged, he looked as though the person who went in never came back. Paler, hollower. Something dark was closing in, and it had nothing to do with fame. What was he hiding from? On August 16, 1977, everything tipped. Nancy was in the kitchen before dawn, frying bacon when he crept in. Soaked, covered in sweat, like he'd been running from something. Nancy slid a skillet in front of him without a word. She asked if he wanted breakfast, but he shook his head. "Just water," he whispered. The jug was the kind used for orange juice, but he drank from it as if he'd gone days without a sip. It wasn't hydration, it was survival. That gulp said everything Nancy needed to know. Something had fundamental changed in him. Would you recognize someone you loved if they changed overnight? She chalked it up to exhaustion after his racquetball session. When Pauline later asked, Nancy said the same. But there was a flicker in Elvis's gaze, one that didn't belong to a man who felt safe in his own home. He carried attention like he expected the next moment to rise like a storm. He slipped upstairs that morning, and Nancy never saw him again. For 40 years, Nancy held her silence. No books, no TV interviews, no cashing in. Others turned their Graceland memories into media headlines, but Nancy believed some truths weren't for sale. Loyalty? Fear? She insists it was neither. It was a pledge to preserve something sacred, even if she could never fully comprehend it herself. But time pulled words out of her, and near the end, she admitted something no fan dared to whisper. I don't think he left this world the way everyone believes. The confession brushed past rumor. It was raw, painful, and entirely her own. Could the 30 years of official story be the only lie? When she finally spoke, her tone wasn't angry or seeking justice. It was tired, soft, as if those voices had been locked inside her for decades, waiting for the right moment. And what she revealed wasn't about overdose or broken health, although both were true. It was about secrets hidden behind those bathroom walls. Long before August, Nancy saw Elvis slip away upstairs, sometimes clutching a small leather-bound book. She never saw him read it, only saw him hold it, like a talisman. She couldn't open it. No one could. But what was inside mattered more than anyone realized. She also remembered how, after his passing, that bathroom was sanitized. Needles, pills, anything that might point inside swept away. Investigators arrived to pristine white tile, and Nancy and Aunt Delta had the only keys to that wing upstairs. No one else could get in. That control over the scene wasn't routine. It was deliberate. They weren't hiding mistakes. They were preserving something deeply personal. What kind of secret do you lock with a key and call a shrine? Web records show 14 different drugs were found in his system that day: codeine, sedatives, stimulants, enough to implode anyone physically and emotionally. But what Nancy heard later from inside Graceland supplementals, recordings, private conversations, hinted at one more name whispered softly across that bathroom door: anxiety. Terrifying levels of it, compounded by pills he couldn't manage. His doctors, particularly Dr. Nicopolis, patched him together time after time, but never addressed what was at the core, the man behind the voice. Could pills have been the amplifier, not the root? Nancy's final manuscript mentions those secret bathroom books, alongside references to his fear of mirrors and reflections. He'd avoid big mirrors or cover small ones when he was in there. He looked away from anything that reminded him who he had become. Would you hide from yourself if you didn't like who you saw? The official story says cardiac arrhythmia. Some mention polypharmacy, but Nancy's truth points to something more. A man fractured from the fame he carried, and a final battle nobody outside that room understood. Nancy recounts how the bathroom stayed locked for years, until Graceland opened in 1982. They left the door untouched, part of Graceland's second floor they never let tourists see. A silent witness still standing, preserved in memory. And Nancy used the key one last time, for herself. She walked up, saw the closed door, heard her own breath catch, and left. Never again would she go behind those walls. He stared at those shelves lined with texts on healing, meditation, reincarnation, and faith. It wasn't mindless numbing. He was searching for a lifeline. Then one evening, in a rare, quiet moment, he told Nancy, "I wish I could just be a man again. Somewhere, ordinary." She understood in his eyes, the exhaustion beneath the performance, the aching desire to vanish from Elvis. He wasn't running from life. He was fleeing the crown. And she realized he was racing against time, desperate for a way out. Could anyone break free when the world wouldn't follow? Years after he passed, Nancy kept her night shifts, dusting trophy cases, dimming the lights, walking halls that should have gone silent. But silence never stayed. Flickers of movement, shifts in air, the faint hum of presence echoed through the trophy room. She didn't call it haunting. It felt like someone checking in. One night, exhausted, she lay by the glass case. A firm nudge at her foot jolted her awake. No one was there, but she felt him. "Mr. Elvis," she whispered, "you did that to wake me up." Fear didn't come, only an odd comfort, as if he was still tending his kingdom. But the question lingered. Was he merely watching, or trying to tell her something important? What message was he delivering that night? Months before Nancy's final public words, she agreed to an intimate recording. No cameras, no audience, just a friend and her voice. She spoke quietly. "They say he overdosed, but I believe he was worn down, body and soul." She paused. He wasn't reckless that morning. He wasn't high. He just needed rest. Then came what she'd never shared before. Days before, Elvis looked at her and asked, "Do you think it's possible to start again?" Nancy said yes. He returned her smile and said, "Maybe I will. Not as a dream, something I'll plan." She didn't press, but that promise lingered. Could it be that Elvis wasn't building an end, but laying the groundwork for a new beginning? What she revealed wasn't sensational, it was human. A man crushed under his own legend, searching for peace that fame couldn't grant. And if he truly planned to walk away, to start life over under a different name, what stopped him? Did the demands of legacy trap him? Or did something unseen hold him in place? The kitchen whispers, silent but screaming in her memory, demanded answers. Meanwhile, the artifacts of his life tell a different story. His private jet, a 1962 Lockheed Jetstar, sat dormant in New Mexico for nearly 40 years before selling at auction for about $260,000. Priscilla Presley noted it once held his joy, his need for escape. Two more jets still grace Graceland, silent reminders of the freedom he both craved and lost. His car collection, some 200 vehicles, ranged from pink Cadillacs to custom Seville sedans. One of the last he bought before his passing, a 1977 Cadillac Seville, recently resurfaced at auction. Its maroon body speaking volumes about a life lived in bold hues. Beyond cars and planes, he owned a fleet of Stutz Blackhawks, including a prototype he first drove in 1970. Its custom mobile phone, a testament to how he embraced luxury early on. He wore gold Rolexes, flashy diamond timepieces that reflected the persona he'd built. But sometimes, Nancy recalled, he avoided mirrors and late-night glances at his reflection. He feared himself. He dodged surfaces that reminded him of Elvis. Would you look away from your own reflection if it didn't feel like you? His real estate was no refuge either. Graceland cost him $102,500 in 1957, valued at over $500,000 by the late 70s. After his death, Priscilla opened it as a museum in 1982, turning grief into fortune, and Graceland is now part of a multi-million-dollar operation. But the estate nearly faced foreclosure in May 2024, until Riley Keough, his granddaughter, legally blocked the sale, calling it fraudulent. It's a tension between keeping a legacy and protecting history. He had business instincts too, owning theme restaurants, managing record deals, and collecting royalties that still shape the music industry. His insurance policies covered health, career, and high-end assets, jets and jewelry, yet nothing could insure his soul. Here lies a lesson. Wealth can build empires, but it never guarantees escape. Comparing his early rise, a farm boy gone multi-platinum, to his late career battles with health, image, and identity, one sees a spectrum of transformation. His public persona was still selling out arenas in the early 70s, but privately, he was fragile, isolated, seeking solace in hidden books and hushed conversations. His later attempts to retreat contrast sharply with the man who once launched into Heartbreak Hotel with wild abandon. Nancy's testimony and the artifacts she left behind invite a final question. What if Elvis didn't die? Not in the way we were told. What if he paused? What if he longed to disappear completely? To choose peace over performance? And failed at the last moment? Would that rewrite everything we believe about him? In the quiet of Part 3, we face the echoes of a life lived in extremes. A man who touched every corner of fame and found himself trapped in its center. But even after the cameras dimmed and the world moved on, his silent conversations through flickering lights and phantom nudges remained. And Nancy, the woman who walked beside him unseen, left behind not answers, but an invitation to look deeper, listen closer, and perhaps finally understand the man behind the legend. As the credits roll, we're left with the image of Elvis peering into mirrors he couldn't bear to confront, a private jet waiting for a journey never taken, and a woman with secrets wrapped around her heart. If Elvis was planning a different path, one free of legend, what would the world have looked like if he had taken it? Thank you for watching this journey toward the unspoken truths of one of history's most iconic figures. If this story moved you, like, subscribe, and explore more untold legends on the screen before you. But above all, keep questioning. Because sometimes what's left unsaid tells the most important part of any story.